Hello and welcome back to When Hope Endures with Mabel and Wesley. We have Ian with us again, talking about the transition to home and kind of how that was and any lingering effects you may still have at this time.
Yeah, excellent. I think one of the things that sticks out immediately was we lived on the third story of a little apartment complex. No elevator or anything, so stairs were an issue,
Mm-hmm.
and especially having to use those stairs multiple times a day to either get to the work or the rehab gym or um, speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, go to school. I think about I mean, anything to get out of the
Mm-hmm.
house.
Right.
Stairs are an issue just because of the limited function that I did have. Um, so we ended up moving. My parents moved down from Seattle and they rented out a house in the area and we were able to move in with them. So it's something we're super fortunate for
Yeah.
to be able to have the support, not only with the physical therapy and stuff, and getting helping with rides and whatnot as my wife went to work and school, but the financial side of things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Huge support, and I think overall that is probably one of the things that just amazes me the most to this day is the amount of people, random people from my past. I mean, I don't live where I went to school, high school, and there's still people from there reaching out and doing what they could to help. And the amount of support was just overwhelming in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm sure you've experienced as well. The just the extent of lengths that people are willing to go to
Right.
just lend an arm or even just say a prayer and stuff.
Shows the good in the world.
Yeah,
Shows when everybody comes together. It's amazing.
absolutely. Humanity is very much still there and alive. Um, yeah, which is fantastic. I used a shower chair for a long time
Mm-hmm.
while we were in our apartment. We were there for 3 months and then moved in with my parents. And the shower that was at that house, thankfully, already had like a little bench seat in it.
Oh,
It was
nice.
a stand-up shower, but had like a little area. So
Uh-huh.
that was nice just to reduce the liability side of things
Right.
that I was to myself. Um, aside from that, though, I didn't have too many, thankfully, and again, perspective. Um, and what I mean by perspective is it could have been so much worse, and I could have needed so many more aids and things like that, but I didn't. And so that's the perspective to keep is remembering that things, yeah, they're bad and they're not great and whatever, but it could be worse. And so as far as adjustments go, they were actually pretty minimal, thankfully. I had a sling for my arm, just my shoulder wasn't an issue. I had a cane. I didn't use it too often. One of the biggest things that I received from my physical therapist at BYU was an ankle brace. That's because I have that foot drop,
Right.
and then also my foot just naturally kind of rolls out,
Mm-hmm.
so it wants to supinate, and so the ankle brace keeps that stable, prevents the foot drop. So that was a big thing and has been my wrist, and I guess to break down the functionality of things. So um, the right side of my body is affected, and it's mostly my arm and my leg. There's some trunk things, some back, some neck, um, and actually some eyes, which I usually forget to mention. But the functionality, it's like my shoulder and my hip are on equal levels. I have about 80% function in each of those. So
Okay.
they're pretty back to normal, pretty
Mm-hmm.
good there. Elbow and knee are less. It's just kind of further down the line of the limb, it's the less function I have. That's about 50%. And then my hand and my ankle are like probably 10% function.
Wow.
Just not a lot of use there. And so I
Mm-hmm.
also have a wrist brace to just keep my wrist in a neutral position when I need
Mm-hmm.
it to be. Um, so in situations where I could get nervous, like if I'm doing any public speaking or something like that,
Uh-huh.
I put that ankle brace on because my leg will just want to roll out.
Right.
Or I don't trip while I'm walking up to
Uh-huh.
somewhere. I have what's called clonus, which is if I step on my foot just right, on like the ball of my foot, my leg just bounces for forever. It won't stop
Uh-huh.
unless I get it in a correct position. And I think everyone feels that to a degree. If you're fatigued or something
Uh-huh.
and your leg just bounces, it's that. But I mean, have it constantly unless I have it in the right spot. My eyes were affected. So I have what's called rotary nystagmus. So my eyeball, both of them just kind of twitch and in a circular motion. So they kind of rotate to the left, my left. And so an example, if I'm laying in bed at night, it's pitch black. I can see the little light on the smoke detector. It's green, and that thing is just moving. And
Wow.
it's annoying. So if I'm focused on something and my eyes are moving, not a problem. But if I'm like stationary on something, that water ball in the corner of my eye is going to start moving eventually. And so if I'm focused, like writing for calculus or work or something like that, I'll think something's moving out of the corner of my eye. It just drives me a little nuts. But the biggest thing I see is if I'm trying to go back to my sports background and like play catch, if the ball's in the air, there's no chance I'm going to be able to catch that cleanly just because it's moving
You see
all around.
wow.
Yeah. So it's not a huge effect, thankfully, but just in little things, I do notice it.
So you don't have like any vision cuts or peripheral loss. It's the moving
It's
of.
just
Wow.
yeah.
Is that similar to the way it was? Because you mentioned kind of how it was frame by frame
Yeah.
beforehand. Is that
Different.
related at all, or
It's
just
different? Yeah, the frame by frame was almost like horizontal, where this like oscillates within its socket.
Wow.
And you can see it if I'm looking at something and you just look at the blood vessels in my eye, you can see they move. But that one's frustrating. I feel like I have noticed it's gotten better, very slightly, but it's gotten better, and it's way worse in the right eye than the left. And it gets worse.
Did you have to do those exercises?
Oh yeah, the vision exercises. Yeah. Adjustment. So my license never got suspended for some reason. It definitely should have, because anyone that has any type of neurological issue, trauma, be it or whatever, they're supposed to flag that immediately.
Right.
It never did. So I got out of the hospital and like days later called, was like, hey, I need to reinstate this. Like, no, you're good.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I still went and took a test anyway, so don't worry.
No.
Safe on the roads. But and every
okay.
5 years I have to get reevaluated by a physical therapist or doctor or something. And so I drive 2-footed now, just because the mobility in the right foot, and also braking with the right foot where it doesn't have like that smooth controlled motion would be a nightmare.
Right.
So I brake with my left and gas with my right.
Okay.
Brake with the left, gas with the right. Yeah. And then it's mostly left-handed, but I can get my right hand up there and grab the wheel, and then I have full
So you
shoulder
don't have to have a
control.
knob or anything installed.
I had a knob for a little while, but I just didn't. It like fell off the steering wheel. I just never put it back on.
Okay.
The knob was actually great though. It was really nice. But I'm trying to think of other big hurdles, and there really hasn't been any. I've thankfully been independent. And again, perspective, like I'm so fortunate to be able to be that, and just continue to have a job and to be able to take care of myself, cook a full meal. Watching me cut an onion's probably scary, but just like getting like
How do you cut the onions?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I like the little quick chop thing. Yeah, it's just, and I think that's the biggest thing is there's so many convenience devices that are considered convenience devices, but for me they're now like imperative. Like they're vital. Like it's so nice to have those types of things. This is not super necessary at all, but I remember Um, around that time was when background. My family is big into Nintendo, and we have it.
Okay.
I've had the regular Nintendo, Super Nintendo,
Mm-hmm.
N64, yeah, GameCube, Wii, etc., all the way through. And Zelda's been a big part of that.
Okay.
And so Zelda was coming out on the Switch,
Uh-huh.
the brand new Breath of the Wild. I was like, I gotta figure out how to do this. And my sister actually found there's an engineer in Mexico. He designed this device to where, and it worked with the Switch because of the Joy-Cons, the two little
Mhm.
side controllers. It wouldn't work on a normal gaming device or controller, but it worked with those because they're so small. He invented this little piece where the Joy-Cons can slide in to where they almost make a shape that's like a V, to where I can play that one-handed.
Nice.
Wow.
I can use the entire Joy-Con. And this gentleman out of Mexico, I don't remember his name, but I have his information saved. I should write him a letter again. But just like opened up my world. It's like I can play games again. So that was a
That's
big one.
awesome.
Yeah, it's just fun being freeing like that.
That's something I wouldn't have thought of, is the fact that you need two
Yes.
hands even for that.
Yeah, I had no chance I'm gonna play like a. I mean, I think they have devices now, but there was no chance to play like an Xbox,
Right.
PlayStation, etc. But yeah, I could explore Breath of the Wild and
That's awesome.
dominate. Yeah, so
That's nice.
it was great. I think for me, the biggest transitions though were mental.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the impairment was physical. The paralysis is physical, of course, or the paresis, but it was the mental side that was the biggest hurdle, bar none. And I think a big part of that for me was comparisons to my past self. And my identity was sports, it was athletics, it was running, number one. At BYU I would enter races that had prize money to just earn money because I could win. I could do well or place in the top 5 or whatever. And so to lose that for me was a big loss.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting back to something was important. And that's the other thing with disability in general, regardless of what it is, not stroke specific, but amputees, whether it's spinal cord, etc. There are so many resources out there for us. So many people that dedicate their lives to helping us do normal things.
Mm-hmm.
So one of those for me, and then just to throw a plug for them, was Wasatch Adaptive, based out of Snowbird. And while I was still in the hospital, they got me into a recumbent trike, which is one of those lay down tricycles, which was retrofitted to have all the braking and gear shifts on the left side. I didn't even need my right hand. And they would strap my right hand on to just so it didn't dangle into the gears or something. But that for me was absolutely freeing to be able to get out and exercise and just be on a bike and do something that was cardio related. Huge. From there, that was during the summer, my stroke in August. The next year, they pushed me to learn to ski. I've never skied in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, we can do it. I'm like, what? Like, it's a normal thing? They're like, yeah, we can do it. It's no problem. So they figured out what I needed and had someone with me and kind of as a guide and got me up on skis. Now every winter, my wife and I ski together.
Awesome.
So it's something new that's been developed for me and for us as a couple. And I think the idea of that, the principle of skiing, trying something new and doing something that's different has been everything. Just because comparing myself to my past self and the physical abilities and stuff that's torture.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to do something that is not, I'm not even able to compare my past skiing events. Learning it all new and fresh to how I now can physically move. It's great. Just having that as the clean slate. That being said, just maybe being stubborn and whatnot, but I wanted to tackle all of those old things again. So trying soccer again, now it's tough. But
Mhm.
now I'm a big fan of soccer, so yeah, I support in that way. But running was probably my number one thing as far as a human
Mhm.
goes. Like people back in my neighborhood in Bothell, Washington, it's like, oh, Ian's back because you can see him out running on the roads. He's back from school or whatever. Just because I would go for 10, 15 miles. And so I wanted to learn that again. That physical therapist, Shane, that held me onto that harness on the
Mhm.
treadmill, kind of helped jumpstart at least the idea. But after a year of physical therapy, I didn't go to anymore. I was kind of done. Like, okay, I think I'm good. I've plateaued mostly with where things are at, and I'm good. But I went back to a neuro specific place called NeuroWorks here in Sandy, and I told them I was like, I want to run again. I want to make sure I'm not a liability to myself. I don't want to injure myself, and I also want to know like, can I get classified in a way? Like, how paralyzed am I really? Just so I can compete against myself and like standards and stuff.
Mhm.
So 2 years ago, just barely, I went there for about 4 months every week, and they say, okay, here's some strength training exercises we can do to help make your gait proper, like your running form.
Mhm.
So you're not a liability to yourself. Here's some stretching things that we need to do because you're inhibited by your lack of mobility.
Right.
And then they said, oh, by the way, to get classified, you have to go to this Paralympic event. It's like, what? So 2 years ago, I actually went down to Arizona in May 2022, and I ran in a 5K for a Paralympic competition, which is really cool. The crazy thing is I mean, one of many things. There were gold medalists there from Tokyo from the prior year.
Wow.
I wasn't running against them, thankfully, but they were. I mean, double amputees running. There were gold medalists running at this event or
Wow.
these events that I was at. So it's just cool. It's so inspiring to see people from all different walks of life that have some sort of physical impairment, whether it's blind. I did run against one guy that had he only had peripheral vision. I can't remember the name of the diagnosis is.
Wow.
And yeah, and he kicked my butt on that 5K. But it was cool being able to be there and run, and everybody's just so supportive and understanding as well. Because I feel like normally I go into a crowd and I'm like so self-conscious. Talk about the mental side of this, the hurdles.
Mhm.
So self-conscious of the way I'm walking, the way I'm perceived, the way I'm viewed. But going into an event where everyone's the same to a degree. Like, hey, these are my people.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about that. So I could run however many laps it was and have like the worst form in the world, or like, okay, this kid's obviously paralyzed, but good for you. I didn't have to worry about that.
Right.
And being able to compete, but also just the mental hurdle for me personally of running again to a degree. And it's successfully too. Being able to run an entire race without stopping and beating my times that I had trained for, and it was cool. And I think for me, I mean, to a degree, the stroke happened once. It was August 7th, 2014. But mentally, in a way, I relive that stroke daily, periodically, through the mental stuff that comes.
Right.
So talking about transitions and overcoming those types of things and what needed to be in place, it was anything I could do to not have those mental hurdles. Because the physical was there. I was there wasn't too much to really do to help, but it's eliminating tripping hazards. It's eliminating those things, because those are the things that really would weigh me down mentally and just continually beat me up. So it was having those things lessened or curbed, and then overcoming what I could mentally. The triangle, the skiing, tackling the running head on again, being able to bike.
Did you use the brace when you were running to avoid
Yeah.
tripping with
Yeah, vital. This morning, actually, first time I've ever run without it, and it was okay. Still, like, very mentally aware, like, I don't know if I should do this. And I could feel my toe scrape a couple times.
Right.
Like I'm not. I'm gonna stop. But yeah, the brace is absolutely essential. And then I wear the wrist brace just because I don't have the control to just keep it
Uh-huh.
stable. So I wear it more as like I don't want to use the mental energy to think about the
Mhm.
wrist. Yeah,
Yeah, when you're running, there's a lot of
there's
movement that
so
we don't
much.
even think about
Yeah,
stopping in our hands.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
So just having that isolate is nice as well.
so you mentioned competing in a triathlon.
Oh,
So how did so you talked about getting back into running and you talked about biking and how they kind of customize the
yeah,
recumbent, but how did swimming
swimming.
how
Yeah.
were there any assistive things with the swimming or did you just have to learn to
So I've never done swimming in my life. I may have swam before, but
Uh-huh.
not like competitively and like for any distance really.
Right.
Um, so as far as like a device, no. Uh, but we figured out a technique to where I could just swim one-sided.
Okay.
Because being able to like get my arm out there, I can get the shoulder, but extending the bicep is
Uh-huh.
too contracted just naturally to where I can't extend my arm fully fast enough at least.
Huh.
So it just wouldn't be effective swimming. So we figured out a little technique where I just would kind of rotate my torso and yeah, and use just my left arm to swim.
Wow.
So it was a little slow, uh, but that was actually I forgot about the swimming side of things. But that was actually one of the more freeing, I think, activities that I've ever done. At least freeing from the mental like liability
Mhm.
worry. Just because one, you're in the water, so you can't hear a lot.
Uh-huh.
Two, you're in the water, so the vision isn't like I mean you're looking through goggles in one
Right.
area, and so it eliminates the distractions of the audio and visual, and then you kind of can get into this rhythm to where yeah you're moving slow, but it's just repetitive motions to where you can just kind of be on your own. It's really weird. It was so difficult though, like because it's so slow and the triathlon is long.
Uh-huh.
So it was exhausting. But the nice thing is talking about devices was they had a wetsuit for me, so that keeps you buoyant, and
Okay.
so it wasn't as like difficult to just tread water. And,
Right.
yeah. So, but it was. I think another cool thing is like, I mean, as far as a confidence booster goes, I even before the stroke, like swimming was so intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
To have to tread water and whatnot, but it it wasn't that bad. Like I could, I mean, yeah, it's tiring after laps and stuff like that, but like to be able to get into that rhythm and just kind of coast, it was fine. You know, I
And with
was
everything
so surprised.
else you'd conquered up to that point,
Yeah,
I imagine part of the fact that you weren't a big swimmer may have contributed it to it being more relaxing because it wasn't like you had to relearn all the strokes you
absolutely,
already knew and now make adjustments. You were learning something for the first time. Kind
absolutely.
of like skiing, I would
Kind of
imagine
skiing. And
then.
I've actually never made that parallel, but it is 100% parallel. It wasn't something I had to compare to my prior self,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate. And yeah, I just think it's something I don't like just now thinking like, why don't I go back to that? Because it was just so beneficial. One, you're
Uh-huh.
getting exercise, cardio, which is good for you. And it would allow me to kind of check out, which is difficult nowadays in life. But it was also kind of that rehab thing as well, to where I'm overcoming part of the stroke and getting the confidence boost.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was a massive one I think as well because I'd never done a triathlon before, and to be able to say like, "What you did a triathlon and you heavy paresis?" Like,
Right.
yeah, it was great,
That's amazing.
and I beat people.
That's amazing.
No offense to them, but I had no business beating. Actually, okay, what it was is I did a sprint. They did like the Olympic size, so that's the reason I was beating them. They
Mhm.
did like 5 times the distance, but it was good.
Still, that's
Yeah, it was great. It was really really fun actually. I recommend it. Yeah.
oh, that's awesome. He talked about a little bit here, also reading through some of your information about some of the volunteer work you do and stroke advocacy. I've noticed, I'll let you talk about that in a go into what you do, but I've noticed that to be a common theme among people who have pushed through, have been motivated with their recovery, is the desire to give back. The person we had talked with on the previous interview, she as well volunteers at a hospital
Oh,
in
cool.
a stroke recovery unit to
Awesome.
help with that. And then hearing about that with you, and it kind of seems to be a common thing. People who have had that help and who have made that progress wanting to give back. So I
Yeah.
want to hear a little bit about what you do.
Absolutely. So in the past I've done therapy. Sorry, therapy. I've done volunteer work through the hospital, a couple of hospitals, and mainly through Utah Valley Stroke Association down in Utah Valley, and then as well up here in the Salt Lake area through American Heart Association. And it's been through a variety of means, whether it's speaking to groups or um, presenting just kind of my story in a similar fashion as this, um, or just being there as an example or helping out where I can. In Utah Valley Stroke Association, we would put on events throughout the year to help stroke survivors come back to normal activities. So we do like a bowling event or a golf event or a meal in a movie or a water event at a water park. So just things like that. So it's putting those on for people. And I think back to my experience, just as humans, expectations are, uh, let's see, fear of the unknown can be a big hurdle for people. And expectations, whether they're created in your mind, can be horrible. They can be, I mean, you expect the worst. That's what we do as humans. That's our human nature. And so being able to be an example to people and see, oh, you've done this, like you lived what I'm living right now, and you're doing okay. Just to kind of be that presence for people, it sets that expectation, a proper expectation in our brains, so that we don't blow it out of proportion or have something unexpected, for better or for worse. To give a good example, like, yeah, maybe it won't come back, but you're still good. And so it's a way to lend that support to those individuals, to give them that expectation. But I think it's also with that is just an incredible inspiration as well. Education as well for me is a big part of it, to be able to spread the word. I went on a social media posting storm a few years back, which is kind of cringy, but just trying to say, like, hey, spread the word. Education's big. Learn about the stroke. And there's a girl that contacted me like 2 weeks into me posting about it. And because of me posting about it, she was able to prevent a stroke in her own life. And so that example just shows me, like, we got to keep doing this. We got to keep spreading the word, because it literally can save lives. And I don't know if it was going to be a fatal type of thing, but at least it saved her life as she knows it. And so for me, that's kind of the thing that keeps me going in that regard. There's been numerous people, and I'm sure for your example as well, have said, like, you should write a book. You should tell your experience more. You should do this, that, and the other. And it's those comments that are also very encouraging, because personally, internally, like, no one wants to hear. Like, no one cares.
Yeah.
It's just me. But it has an impact, and it can have a huge impact, even if it's on just one person. And so the volunteer side of stuff it's immense. Promoting the events that go on, because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of stroke related. There's a lot of paralysis related things that go on that people just don't know about.
Yeah.
And that's where we create this community and camaraderie and support, and you never know what that can do for someone. And so I think for me at this point, it gives purpose to the stroke as well, because we can sit all day long and think, why did this happen? Like for me, it was literally a freak accident. I've done this a million times, and this happened from tubing. Uh, there's no. I would go insane trying to think of why did this happen to me. Um, but I can at least give it purpose by doing things like this. Um, Meeting with these volunteer type people and organizations that are giving so much of their time and resources to help. And there's so many people that are just in the dark about it. And so that for me is a big motivation. Uh, it's, I mean, it's done a lot for me. I think about Wasatch Adaptive. The first time I was exposed to them was a volunteer event. They came and volunteered at the hospital I was at. BYU Golf did a golfing event while I was in the hospital. I was like, I can still golf? That's cool. That's different. So just another chance to get out and do stuff. There's been, I'm trying to think of other things through the American Heart Association. They're trying to change things at a legislative level. And so it's actually going to lawmakers and lobbying and saying, hey, we need better representation in this regard. Or we need this to stop because it can cause and harm stroke and that kind of thing. So there's so many different ways to do it, but I think the motivation's the same: is to spread the word, education, and then to give other people like me hope and realize that the true expectation of what life can be, that there's still life to be had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I mean, you can't change the fact that it happened, but you choose to make the best of your life after it happened and to benefit others. Like you were saying, I love that there's still life to be had. Sometimes it's easy to just become complacent with being alive, but that's different than living that life.
Yeah.
And choosing to push through this, and not just push through it for you, but then to go help others. I mean, that speak mountains for who you are as a person, and
thanks.
And just the desire you have to spread that. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely, and thank you. I think it's so easy to fall back and just accept. And I don't mean accept like I accept this happened to me, but I mean accept like it is what it is type thing. I'm just gonna be here.
Right.
But being able to step out of that comfort zone, I think about the triathlon training I did. It was literally with the triathlon group where these people paid probably hundreds a month to get this training from these coaches. And through Wasatch Adaptive, actually, I didn't realize that they were the connection. I was in that door for free. Training these facilities, getting this coaching one-on-one, because I was a unique case, the only one that was in that bracket at all. I entered the triathlon for free, which is normally like, I don't know how much they are, but probably $100 or something entry fee. And I didn't even think about that until now, that I got all this stuff, doors open, but at the same time, so uncomfortable because I was the only one that had any sort of physical defect. So I mean, there's one side of the coin where you could say, and I think about the swimming here, like, oh, I'm off on the end of the pool by myself, like ostracized. But no, I get my own lane.
Right.
I'm taking it that. Like, I don't have to share with anyone. But I remember days where training on the track, doing the running, where I would just do like a little stride out sprint on the turf, and the foot drop would get the best of me, and I'd fall down. It didn't happen often, but man, when it happened, so internally painful for me, and that's the discomfort. You just gotta. It is what I mean. That in that side of it, it is what it is. But I think at the same time, if I were in their shoes and saw someone fall, like it'd be nothing but sympathy and love and support. And so I gotta think like I'm sure that's similar. Like they're not gonna look down on me. And so it's overcoming those types of hurdles and and that discomfort, which is constant.
Right.
But it's worth it every time. It's difficult. It's not easy. But the best things in life aren't easy. They're worth the pain, the suffering, and whatever you have to go through. But I mean, thinking of the stroke in general, and I think about lessons that I've learned, which are daily. It's trying new things has been so important to me. It's trying those things, and then in some cases hitting the old things head on, like the running. Soccer doesn't make sense, and I'm okay with that. Like
Right.
it's that side of acceptance, accepting that it's just not something I'll be able to do. But we move on and we find new things to replace that. And then the other side is continually challenging yourself, because complacency will I mean, it's the same thing. Use it or lose it. Complacency, you'll lose it, whatever it is. So challenging yourself to learn new things, to be uncomfortable, to go through the pains. It's the same thing with rehab. When you talk about physical therapy where you work, a shoulder surgery, it's painful, but you gotta get through it to get back to 100% or as close as you can. The same thing with this type of stuff. It's just there's other elements to it. It's a little more complex for us, but I think those have been some of the biggest lessons that I've learned. And a lot of that has been through this volunteer work, because I'm fortunate enough to be able to, like this, sort out the words in my brain and untie those knots that I have in my own brain to share a story. And yeah, it might benefit someone, but honestly, it benefits me a lot to be able to like put things in order and express and actually express. I went to a therapist and he talked about how we internally express things if we hold them in, and it's not healthy. You gotta actually outwardly express things. And so this is a way to do that, and it has been through volunteer work. And I talk about perspective a lot, and that comes when you volunteer, because you can see other people in other scenarios. And it's so sad, because I know it could be so much worse for me, because I've seen it, and it's heartbreaking in some ways. But I feel so fortunate. Gratitude is one of the biggest healers to that negative mindset, in my opinion. Just because it keeps us humble, keeps us grounded, and keeps us moving.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's very, very inspiring, and I feel that you probably inspire people without even realizing it.
I'm already inspired.
It's very come on.
I don't do
10 days after a baby, like that is next level.
Like I'm pretty, like I'm thinking maybe I'm going to the complacent side, but no, like
I mean,
thinking, oh wait, I can do things still, like try new things, because sometimes I want to paint or whatever. I'm like, no, whatever, I don't want to do this. But it's like your brain, yeah, like creates new, what is it called?
yeah, the pathways.
Neuroplasticity. Yeah. So yeah, you're inspiring me right now. So
it's mutual.
I think with the running too. So you're talking about
the running.
When you were training, and how you would feel, not the word, but like intimidated, a little bit of with the others who we're not in the same
literally alone
areas.
in my own
right. And you, at that time, it could be easy to be thinking that, oh, they're looking at me as to what right does he have to be here.
Yeah.
But another way of looking at it is, you probably were an inspiration to a lot of them as well, who they're out there training and struggling, and then they're seeing you with the hemiparesis out there doing it as well. And I know if I was trained for something, I saw somebody, that would be inspiring to me. Hey, look at the effort they're putting
Yeah.
in. I need to be able
Oh,
to put in that effort too. And you never know those people down the line what they may go through as well. And having seen that
That's a really good point.
is can be a future inspiration to them as well. Hey, I remember
Yeah.
this person. And so a lot of times when we go through just living life, we can be an inspiration to others without even realizing it.
Absolutely. I never thought about that. Like for future things that they may go through. I've never thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an example. Because if, say down the road they do have a stroke, they're like, oh, I remember that
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
little white guy. That was or blonde guy. So when I lived in Mexico, they would call me transparente. So, I'm English descent. Anyway, I meant blonde.
Mhm. Yeah.
That little blonde guy. But yeah, no, that's true. Thank you for future events that they may go through or future things. They might remember that. I never thought of it.
I mean, you were there for you, but in a way, you
Yeah.
could have been there for
Yeah,
them as well. So
absolutely. I've never thought of that. I appreciate that.
we really appreciate you joining us today. This has been a great discussion and has really been beneficial to us to hear your story as well, and a lot of words of encouragement from it. So really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And thank you for your time. And we hope that the listeners out there can find the inspiration from this. And again, thank you for you listeners for joining us. And hopefully you'll join us next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.